I'm going to do a video. I'm too lazy to type. This is the front of my house. This is Blue Boy. He came from Kentucky. That's a sign I made because nobody ever gets the numbers that are on the house, which you can't see. This is a curb garden. Started it about 8 years ago with the yellowish green things and some of the red plants. And it has slowly filled in and done well. This was an expensive rose bush I bought. It hasn't done squat, but is finally getting happy. This is a new plant. Don't ask me what it is because I don't remember. Bought it last fall. And these are flowers for bees and to make the house look nice. And here is my phlox. They're out of season. Usually it's all covered with these purple. It's just a carpet of those flowers. This too is something that is filled in and is doing well. That's part of what we call the curb garden. Actually, we call it sidewalk garden. This is the shade garden. These trees here shade the heck out of it. And there used to be a tree over there in about the center of the screen, but they cut it down, so that's opened this up a lot. This is myrtle that we planted from the back 40. That's a rose bush that Lindy bought for a third of what I paid for the one that's out front that looks like squat. And he's a happy camper. I scored about 1,800 bricks for $200 in 2019, and so I made myself some paths. And that's what you'll see some more out back. These are tulips I planted last fall. Got them in North Dakota at Menards. Myrtle's trying to grow over here. The big green plants that you asked about are called hostas. They are very aggressive. They started out little, and there was only 5 or 6 of them about 5 years ago. I got them from my neighbor, and I've been nurturing them and spreading them out a little bit. And so they have just take off. And they're happy campers, and they'll bloom, and I'll send you flowers when they bloom. These guys are bigger. I don't know the particular name. These guys are variegated. He's just different. So I've been spreading them around. And again, my path. And Lindy's tractor. Got me a John Deere. She painted it. Another one of those plants. Here's my rose bush that's the same. Bought this the same time that I went out by the curb. He's a much happier camper over here. This is another rose bush. We got hit by a hard freeze in late April, which raised holy hell with my plants. It snowed the day of the hard freeze, so everything got wet. So the cold just attacked my plants. And I've tried all kinds of things over here. Nothing really grows. This is a crepe myrtle that has just been decimated by that hard freeze. Here's another rose bush that just keeps hanging in there. He doesn't quit, so I don't dig him up. That's a maple tree. No, that's an oak tree that grew from an acorn from this guy here. We planted him. He was about that big. It's a single stump. And he has grown into this beautiful tree. And that's one of his babies. I let it grow. That's a maple tree that we grew from the seedlings that float around from the backyard. Over there in the corner is where I let the water out of my backyard. It floods, and it's just like a dam overflow out here. The water comes down the street. When it rains so hard, it runs over his driveway, comes down here, floods down through here. You can see how it's just eroded his yard. And then it digs under his fence, and it goes under the fence, and then it goes into my yard. It's not anything he does intentionally. It just happens. And this is the grass we try to grow. It doesn't like to do a good job. Back to my shade garden. These little plants here, you'll see them in various stages. They are Gladiolas. Planted them last year to see what they would do, because I used to have wildflowers in here, and they just scraggly looking. And these things grow to be almost as tall as I am. So that's why I have this webbing I put in to help support them. I bought, I don't know, 25 bulbs last year and planted them in the springtime. They said to dig them up in the fall, and I dug them up in the fall. Most of them had made babies, and one bulb now was 3. Well, they were just, and they would be the size of a walnut shell, and there were, I don't know, 100 ones about the size of marbles, and they said to dig them up in the fall, so I dug them up. That's how I knew they had babies. And I went to plant them this spring. Well, actually, a bunch of them came up. The taller ones you see here came up on their own. They're ones I missed. And so I remembered, oh, I got to plant those. So I went and dug them out of the storage area, and some of them already started germinating. So I planted a whole bunch of them back in here, and they're just going nuts. It'll be interesting to see what they look like later in the year. That's a wildflower that self-seeded. They're annuals. Everybody else here, everything I've planted big time now is all perennials. I don't want to mess with this stuff. Manage it as far as grooming it, yeah, I can do that. But as far as planting them and all that stuff, no way. Let's see. Our Anderson windows that we paid a fortune for, but it has turned out to be a great deal because we've had them back every year to fix little things, and they don't give me any crap, but they just come out and fix them. During the hard freeze, my messy garage, I'm at Churchill. My kayak rack that I made for my truck. The beast. And we used to have a wooden temporary single gate here that lasted 10 years. I tore it down this year and put in this thing, and it is just so much nicer and makes the yard look good. As a Churchill, we have boats. Our kayaks are start out here. They have covers for the winter, like little individual suits. New air conditioning unit last year. This is another tree we planted. There were no trees here when we bought the place. None of these trees were here. So we planted, this is Smith, and that's Weston, and this is Wisteria. We got a cutting from a friend of ours who had a bed and breakfast in Natsadoses. They bought the house that they filmed the movie Terms of Endearment in, and they had us down, and we took a cutting, and it sat out front by where that rose bush was by the fence, and the second one I talked about, and it didn't do squat. Brought it out here about 10 years ago, planted it in the corner over there, and it's gone absolutely nuts. It's one of the most invasive plants that you can have. Matter of fact, we have this garden here for Lindy, and you can see he's rooted himself underground into that. I cut it all back this year because it didn't do well. And this is Weston, as in Smith & Wesson the guns. And this guy back here